Okay, we ready to go, Heather?
We are.
All right, welcome everybody. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency for December 8th, 2021. And so welcome. Let's see, are there any comments, privilege of the floor to anybody who wants to speak to us or anything to read into the record? Heather,
Let's see, I've got Tom Robinson teed up for privilege of the floor.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity, Heather. I was just asked to comment to give my opinion or input on, support of manufacturing in Tompkins County, specifically for Knickerbocker bed. I think it's very important as an organization and as a fellow manufacturer in the area that we support manufacturing to get the critical mass in New York State. It brings additional support companies so that we don't have to reach out as far to be able to get that level of support for the businesses that support our manufacturing. It helps enable the schools to view manufacturing careers as a viable alternative. There's a lot of critical mass that comes with additional manufacturing. And I think my comment to Heather yesterday was, we don't want to be the last one left with the lights on doing manufacturing, right? Because all of the support structures, the perception from workers, et cetera, just kind of goes away. And, I think New York State offers a lot of challenges to establish new manufacturing here for a multitude of reasons. And I think anything especially when a business desires to work here, that helping enable that and help attract that in spite of those challenges is really critical. So as a fellow manufacturer, I would absolutely support any efforts and initiatives to bring additional manufacturing into this area, specifically in this county. And
Tom, for the record, could you just tell us your title and where you work for?
Sure, I'm sorry. I'm with BorgWarner Morse Chain up on Warren Road here in Ithaca. My role is plant manager. I have a total of about 33 years with the company, all but about 2 of them here in this location. So I'm an engineer by trade, have experience in a lot of the manufacturing disciplines that we utilize here in the plant.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. And typically we don't do this, but if any of the IDA members have any questions for Mr. Robinson? No. Martha?
Yes, it's a totally different subject, but I know that because of the non-pipe alternative between NYSEG and Public Service Commission and the town of Lansing, I believe BorgWarner has done some really innovative work on to save energy. Was it on your manufacturing processes or was that on your heating plant? If you know anything about that.
Yeah, so we specifically for this site don't have any significant changes in our energy consumption. We are starting to map that out to reduce our greenhouse gases. That's part of our corporate objectives. We did have a step improvement in our wastewater, which is positively impacting the Cayuga Heights wastewater plant and therefore the lake as well. That's something that's been taken online over the last 6 to 12 months. So that was a step improvement, but specifically we are looking at other, solar energy associations, the possibility of panels here, which I don't think is looking all that positive, but we do have some challenges because we do a lot of heat treat and we use a lot of natural gas, and we're always looking for ways to reduce that from both a greenhouse gas and a cost perspective. But I can't say we've made any step improvements in that in the past that would necessarily be highlighted.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'm glad to hear about the other initiatives, and I was mistaken then about the non-pipe alternative. Thanks very much, Tom. Good to hear that.
No problem. Thank you, Martha.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Well, thank you, Mr. Robinson. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your views.
Thank you. I'm happy to help. Have a good day.
Right. Are there any other comments, questions from the public? Okay.
two that were submitted. I know there's a number of people that are in the Zoom, and I just want to make sure that no one is here for privilege of the floor.
Yeah, speak up if you're there for that purpose. Seeing
So-
none. Okay,
We did receive two written comments, one from Sean Wilzinski and at the Cuga Mine. Did you want to read that one, Rich?
yeah, I'll read the one from Sean Wilsinski. So thank you for letting me know about the potential for a business to relocate to Tompkins County from New Jersey, which could result in 88 jobs. I was disappointed but not surprised to hear that New York State processes and funding options are falling short and not providing much support. Luckily, Tompkins County has the IDA and other ways to assist with this kind of opportunity. Although I am not aware of what the company needs or all of the options the IDA has to support this kind of opportunity, I do know that local support can have a larger impact than some might realize. For example, Cargill was approved for a sales tax exemption material associated for Cargill's new shaft construction, resulting in assistance of $640,000. Although the $640,000 would only have a 1.4% impact on a $45 million project, it sent a strong message of support to Cargill that went a long way to Cargill deciding to approve the project. Please keep this in mind when considering what could be done to support business retention and growth. Sean Wilzinski, Mine Manager, Lansing, New York, Cargill.
And then I've got the comment from Teresa Alt. The request from Park Grove Realty about the affordable housing building at Carpenter Park is reasonable given how much the whole deal is set up. It has the advantage that it extends the affordability of the building an extra 5 years. The disadvantage is that the costs will be borne by future homeowners and renters through their higher property and sales taxes. But that illustrates why this whole IDA tax abatement structure is not a good way to provide affordable housing. It turns over the costs of affordable housing onto the backs of the general population, some of whom have plenty of money and others of whom have way less. Property taxes and sales taxes are regressive, hitting the poorest residents the hardest. Affordable housing needs to be publicly owned housing funded from taxes that are based on ability to pay. The IDA has not set up to do this. The IDA should concentrate on job creation. That's what it was designed to do.
Okay, thank you. And are there any other comments? Seeing none, I think the next item is to ask whether there are any additions to the agenda. Heather, Ina, is there anything?
Nope.
No? All right, let's proceed to business. The first item is the Knickerbocker project. And I believe we have some representatives from Knickerbocker here with us. Yes?
Yes, Tom Tillman is here, Richard Polovoy, and I think you might have brought a couple of others with you, Richard.
Michael Salavani with Hunt Engineers.
And
Okay.
Fred Thompson with LaChase Construction.
Hey, well, welcome. And what you do have in your packet today is an approving resolution, approving the incentive package that was provided along with the application in last month's meeting, property tax, sales tax, and mortgage recording tax incentive package. We did hold the public hearing yesterday. We had 0 comments. Ina did send out a copy of the public hearing minutes to the IDA members yesterday for consideration. The project has received its permit and approvals from the town of Dryden along with their environmental determination. So we are set unless anyone has questions and wants them to be addressed to take up this resolution today.
Yeah, I'd like to give the representative from Knickerbocker a chance just to make a brief statement if they wish to do so. Is there anything further you want to tell us?
Oh,
Before
I'm very appreciative of all the support that I've gotten both communally and from your agency And I want to just thank Heather publicly for all her hard work on our behalf. And it's a privilege to be coming up to the area.
Okay. Well, let's get into our discussion. John, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify what we have, the authorizing resolution that's here is exclusive of the conversation about using our fund balance, right? This is the abatement package, mortgage recording tax and sales tax exclusively, right?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Then I would like to go ahead and move it. I think this is a great project. Thrilled to have the opportunity to support it. So yeah, I'd like to move it.
All right. Martha, did you second? Okay.
Yes.
Any further discussion on the motion? Were you raising your hand to speak or to second, Laura?
No, just raising to second.
Okay. All right. Let me just get to the page, so I'll call them in order.
Rich?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think this is really wonderful. I'm curious about the timeline of when we'll start to see activity up there. And you know, Richard, I won't be in the legislature when you get here, but please put me on the invitation list for the whatever ribbon cutting you have.
Be my pleasure.
Okay. So what's your timeline? When do you think you'll start operations?
We're hoping to phase in late winter, early spring, and start hiring people. We've already hired some management people who are going to assist us locally. They're from up in the Ithaca and Dryden area, and you know, I'm going to leave it up to them to start recruiting people to work in the plant. So we expect to start in late February, early March, slowly building a workforce.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
All right, and
You're welcome.
Heather, if just for clarity, if you could indicate which incentives are covered by this resolution.
Sure, would be the property tax incentive, which deviates from our standard policy. It's a 10-year incentive, essentially freezing the existing taxes that are being paid for a period of 7 years, phasing the full taxes in over years 8, 9, and 10. Which is similar to what we've done recently with other building purchases with renovation. And then a sales tax abatement on the construction, furniture, fixtures, fit out, and then an abatement on the state share of the mortgage recording tax.
Okay, and then there's the other incentive or potential incentive that we're going to consider separately. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so are we ready to vote? Any further comments, questions? I'll call the roll. Martha Robertson.
Yes.
Jeff Gorski.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
Todd Brewer.
Yes.
John Guttridge.
Yes.
Laura Lewis.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that passes unanimously. Very good. Okay. And were we going to consider the other issue now, or what's?
That was part of our fund balance discussion.
All right, so we're going to go to the fund balance and then come back to this.
If that's what you would prefer.
Well, I'm wondering if we should have that discussion now while we have the representatives from Knickerbocker here and proceed that way. Martha.
We have folks from Carpenter Park, from Park Grove here waiting. I actually think it might not be favorable to have an applicant for the fund balance when we haven't even talked about the scope and purposes of the fund balance. So I would actually prefer, with all due respect, that we don't have the applicants, you know, obviously anybody's list can listen, but they would not be part of the conversation from my point of view.
Well, I'd certainly like to give them a chance to talk about the specific incentive. Perhaps we could take care of Carpenter Park so that those people who are waiting would get their issues addressed. So we'll change the order a little bit. Does that make sense to the members? Okay, why don't we pick up Carpenter Park? We will then circle back to either the incentive or the fund balance discussion. So Heather, we have representatives from Carpenter Park with us. That,
We do. We have Andrew Bodaways and Tim Crilly. On the applicant side, you have a letter in your package requesting some increases as a result of some increases in costs with the project. They have requested we extend the pilot term on the affordable housing project from 30 to 35 years to be coterminous with the Housing Finance Agency mortgage, which is pretty standard. We've done that, in all of our affordable housing projects. The pilot term would be for the term of that mortgage. So we have some that have been 25, some have been 30 and 35 years. And then they've also requested an increase in sales tax as a result of increase in costs now that they have bid the project out. And then their financing structure has changed a little bit. And so they've asked for more in terms of the mortgage recording tax benefit that the IDA provides.
actually, in reading the letter, it seemed to me there was pretty substantial changes because of construction costs and the supply chain issues we're seeing. That it must be a pretty stressful situation right now. At any rate, I'd like
I'm
to give
stressed hearing about it from all the applicants about construction costs going up. The total incentive goes up about almost $214,000. It's roughly 11% of project costs. It's still in line with what we would be delivering for other projects.
Well, let's give the representatives a moment to make a statement if they wish, and I see several hands up, but why don't they go first? So is there anything you'd like to share with us?
Well, this is Andy Bodewis. I just say thanks for listening to us again, and we're working very hard, and I appreciate your comments. It's been pretty stressful. That it's been very challenging to get to a contract price, and we are experiencing the effects of the inflationary pressure associated with the pandemic and thereafter, and it's been difficult, but we think we see a path forward, and we're working diligently to get this project closed and started. We know it's an important piece to the overall Cayuga Park project, both for us and for the community. And we're simply asking for the increase in sales tax associated with the increase in cost. And the increase in the mortgage amount was really to reflect that a large part of the cost of the project at the end of the project, the large part of the sources is really the tax credit equity, if you will. And that's the money that the investor, which in this case is M&T Bank, who's agreed to buy the low-income housing tax credits, ultimately we will put about $8 million or so into the project. But they don't put the bulk of that money in until the end. And so we need a rather large construction loan to get us through completion. And then their equity dollars will come in and will allow us to pay that down. And we'll have obviously there's this much smaller permanent mortgage than you would typically have on a market rate project. And that's because the rents are much lower than what a market rate project would have. And the project can't support a very big mortgage. So all in all, it's been a challenging few months to get through this process, but we appreciate the community support. This is an important project, and we look to have your support here today and available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, Laura, jump in.
Thank you. I always have to find my unmute button. And Andy, thank you for addressing us again today. I continue to be very supportive of this project, in particular because of the 40 plus, I guess it's right around 40 affordable housing units, which we desperately need. So I'm very pleased to support that. I do have a question for Heather that is, if this is going to indicate potentially other increases from developers based on the increased costs and the supply chain issues. I mean, Andy, I certainly appreciate that this has been an incredibly stressful period for you. And again, I continue to be very supportive of your project. My question really is, how pervasive might this issue and concern and similar requests be?
Laura, generally, the project closes soon after their approvals. So, in terms of property tax, it's all generally it's all an estimate, except for an affordable housing project where we will establish what the payment is. So, for another project where they're receiving, a 100% abatement in year 1, 90% in year 2, it's based off of what the actual value is at project end. So that wouldn't change anything that we would be doing. We have had instances where mid-construction, near the end of construction, we've had applicants come in and say, can you increase the sales tax amount? The sales tax amount is always an estimate. Up until about 4 years ago, you could just say blanket sales tax, use whatever you use on your construction project. About 4 years ago, the state required that we now set a maximum. So we have a couple of times, it's always an estimate. We have, gone back and increased that maximum amount. My guess is that we'll see a little bit more of that over the course of the year with projects that are getting ready to start construction and projects that are currently under construction.
Okay. John.
Heather already answered most of my question. I guess really I was just curious how certain the project is that these costs are now accurate, if your contractors are locking in your pricing at contract closing, or if you're subject to some variability as material prices continue to fluctuate.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's a good question. I'm Tim Crilly, also with Park Grove. We're expected to close on this deal within the next week or two, and we have a construction contract that will be executed within the next few days. So we're pretty certain, and we feel pretty comfortable that, that the 9.5 number is accurate. But it's the market has changed so much so quickly over the last year with COVID and the impacts of inflation. I mean, inflation's at 6% right now, so it's pretty it's a different world out there. But we've been working hard with our contractors trying to get this number, and we believe it is the right number. So,
all right. Well, we probably shouldn't delay our vote too much. We should get it done. Are we ready? Any further comments?
I actually have one more quick question for Heather,
Okay.
just following up on something she just said about the right. So in the case of a 581A, like an actual 581A assessment, the project would be analyzed annually, right? And the tax rate for the following year would be set based on actual income expenses from the previous year. Whereas we're basically locking this in. I mean, if there's a substantial increase in AMI, we're still locked into these same tax rates for 35 years for this project? Is that accurate?
Yeah, what I've seen, and I sit on all the for-profit boards for all the tax credit projects at INHS. There's about 16 of them now. So I've seen a number of these over the past 10 years, is that, they project their revenues. The revenues really don't change very much from one year to the next. The mix of AMIs in a unit may change a little bit. But there's such a waterfall of mortgage loans, deferred developer fees, other items that need to be paid, that when they get down to the bottom, it's generally close to zero. So over time, what we've done is, I think the first two projects, affordable housing projects that we did very similar to 581A, where they would have to show net operating income each year, and then the tax would be based on net operating income. After the first 2 years of the Hancock project, I had a conversation with Jay Franklin in the county assessment department, and he and I both agreed the net operating income really does not change from one year to the next. And it's a lot of work and creates a lot of confusion over an assessment when they each year have to do the calculation and get all the information from the applicant. So he said, Heather, would you consider just establishing a set payment? It's not going to change that much. We have actually put in a 2% escalator. So it's probably in our benefit rather than the applicant's benefit, but it does provide a lot more certainty and less paperwork on the taxing jurisdiction's end. So this was sort of what we had started doing, sort of moving forward on each of the successive affordable housing projects.
Okay.
But that is, so if we had a period of sustained high inflation like the 80s, we might find ourselves upside down on a bunch of these, right? 35 years is a long time. So I don't know, just a comment. I'm going to vote for this modification, but we might want to think about that.
Just to point out though, and I think your point is a good one, if the AMI goes up, doesn't necessarily mean we can increase the rent according to that new AMI. Every year we have to, the state reviews our operating budget and our rents, and they're going to only approve very limited rental increases. Now, they'll review it in line with the operating expenses. And if the operating expenses are going up and there's an opportunity, there's a need to raise them because the AMI is up. I guess long story short is the state housing agency is a sort of a check valve on all of it anyway. So they are reviewing it on a regular basis. They have ongoing asset management people that we have to work with and report to annually, our budgets and all that sort of thing. So
thank you.
Okay. Todd?
I just want to, just like what John was saying too, the 35 years is an awful long time. Is that going to be a deal breaker for you guys, Andy and Tim? If you don't get the extension on that from 30 to 35?
It will be, yeah. HCR does require, and a permanent lender will require a pilot to be coterminous with the term of the loan, which is expected to be 35 years. And again, it's 35 years. We had to bump it from 30 to 35 years to get more loan proceeds to pay for the increased costs.
Would you plan on holding on to this project afterwards?
Yes.
Or plans on selling it down the road? Or I mean,
No,
35 years is a long time. Just a long
our plan
time.
is always to own for the long term. 35 years is a long time. So, but as I say here today, our plan is to own for the long term. I do believe that there's a income restriction in place for 50 years. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
So regardless of at the end of 35 years, we may have paid off the state loan and all that, but we still have an income restriction in place.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the request as outlined in the letter. Laura moves.
Can I actually, wait, I'm sorry, can I just ask one question? So
Well, let's get the motion on the floor.
okay, sure, then,
Martha
yeah.
seconds. John, you had something further?
Yeah, so something you just said, you said that the loan is anticipated to be 35 years. It's not, you don't actually have
We have a
certainty around that
commitment.
yet, right?
We have a commitment.
Sorry?
We do have a
Okay.
commitment, yes.
I mean, so can we basically just specify that the abatement's coterminous with that loan? So if something changes in the future, we don't have to come back, whatever that term is. Heather, is that possible?
Well, they're teed up to close next week. I doubt it's going to change.
On that financing?
Yes.
Okay, never mind.
Okay, Todd, is your hand still up or new question? Okay,
Sorry about that.
it's all right. Martha?
Yeah, this project also has an award of $300,000 from the Community Housing Development Fund, which requires permanent affordability as defined as a 49-year commitment. So that's pretty long.
Yeah, I think we have a 50-year commitment with the state, I believe, Martha.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Anything further? Are we ready to vote? I'll call in order. I see people on this. Mike,
Yes.
you had something?
No, I was just going to vote.
Oh, okay. Well, Mike, how do you vote?
Yes.
Right, Martha?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. That's unanimous. Thank you for coming in and sharing with us the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
Good
you.
luck on your project.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Well, what's the pleasure of the IDA on where we go next? Next in line appears to be the local labor policy, but I know there are people waiting for our discussion on fund balance. Where would you like to go? Any preference? I would say let's move through fund balance discussion. Martha?
Yeah, I would agree with that. We were, that special meeting that we had, we were hoping to get to, we didn't even start. So I would appreciate that.
Okay. Heather or Russ, do you want to introduce this?
Sure. I would just ask that maybe we set a time limit to have this discussion. I know we have about an hour. I just want to make sure that we get to the labor policy, the MOU. I do have some staff updates that I haven't been able to make under my staff report for a couple of meetings because we've ran over, and we do want a couple of minutes to go into executive session to update on the Arrowhead Ventures project.
Okay.
I, for one, could stay a little later if that's necessary. I don't know if that's advisable, but.
Well, let's see where we're at. Let's go as quickly as we can.
Okay, so I will sort of recap in terms of fund balance. I put in the agenda packet again, the memo that Russ had provided around what the IDA can and cannot do with its fund balance. Reminder that Ithaca Area Economic Development has an agreement with the county whereby the county provides about 22-24% of IAEDs financial support, and not the IDA, the Ithaca Area Economic Development. In that agreement, they request that if the fund balance at the IDA goes over $600,000 after setting aside your next year's projected expenses, that we report that the IDA, come up with a plan for what they want to do with that money and report to the legislature what the plan is around any excess fund balance. So today our best guess is after expenses, we might end up with about $1.8 million in fund balance. The final memo would go to the legislature probably in April. After our audit is done, we have final numbers in March. We'll present to the legislature in April. So we put this on the agenda to sort of start having this discussion about, what are the IDA's goals in terms of fund balance. What would you like to see uses for these funds, or, saving these funds for a little bit of a rainy day should our project pace and fee structure fall off over the next couple of years or into the future. So that was sort of, the reasoning for putting this fund balance discussion on the agenda. Again, to start discussing, we won't have to have really any decisions or announcements to the legislature until April. And at the same time, I saw that, I'm working with Knickerbocker, this manufacturer, and the state has just not stepped up in a way that they generally say that they do to support industrial and manufacturing growth and attraction in upstate New York. They have not provided anywhere near an 18 to 20% incentive, which they readily publicize that they do. They've provided about an 8% of project cost incentive, much below the 20%. The 8% is comprised of tax credits, some of which are refundable, some of which carry over for future years. These estimated tax credits are over a 10-year period, beginning with about $30,000 in year one. So I thought, okay, if the state's not going to come through, is there a way that, you know, the IDA might be able to use some of its fund balance to help to support this project? The IDA, according to our memo from our attorney, Russ Gensel, clearly states that we cannot grant or loan money to private industry. However, it is not unusual for an IDA to purchase equipment, lease equipment at, you know, $1 a year or a very low cost for a period of time to help to support a project through some sort of a contractual agreement. Once in the past, we did provide about $300,000 through contractual agreements to do some planning and feasibility around the Emerson Power Transmission Facility after Emerson moved out. We did a traffic and transportation study, some preliminary environmental reviews, things like that. So it's not out of the question that, you know, this IDA has never done this before.
Okay. Russ, do you have anything to add?
No, I think Heather did a great summary. You know, it's a really quirky, archaic state law provision that we can't grant or loan money. You can invest money, you can buy equipment, you can buy property, you just can't give it away.
Okay. That's a summary of your memo. Good. Martha, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Speaking of this memo, I would ask that we get a corrected memo. This has been in our packet 3 months now. It sort of looks as though this is the correct policy, and I would ask that we get a corrected one because anybody looking through this has the wrong impression.
Just for the record, Martha, could you indicate the correction you'd want made?
Well, the whole second paragraph, which Russ has acknowledged is incorrect, that says that my understanding is that Tompkins County reduces its annual TCAD payment in the event the IDA fund balance exceeds $600,000. Not true. We don't do that. We just ask for a report to the legislature, to the legislative committee overseeing IAED as to the plans for the use of the fund balance. So that's been acknowledged, and I just want to make sure we get the record correct.
And Martha, that's fine. You know, that's more of a local issue and the relationship that you have with the county versus state law and what you can do with money. So yeah, we can correct that. That's easily done.
Okay,
Yes.
do you have more, Martha?
Regarding Knickerbocker, I think the request was $500,000. If the available balance is 1.8, then my math says that's 27.7% of all that's available. Now, I think there's going to be a lot more that will be known by April. For example, the county's recovery fund, which is taking a very long time to roll out, but we might know, you might know more by then about what's available, what kinds of projects might be eligible. We should know more about other kinds of federal funding that will be coming down the line. I think it's not the best idea to take more than a quarter of this fund balance, which, I mean, this is kind of precious. The IDA hasn't had this kind of money to really do something, you know, once in a generation. So, for example, I think about, and Heather's talked about Chainworks, and I would agree that's really a transformational project that in many ways, you can imagine there could be gaps in all sorts of places between what we would like and what David Lubin would like to do and what's fiscally possible. So given the fact that the applicant has gone ahead and is going ahead, Knickerbocker is going ahead and doing their project and coming here, it's not, it would appear it's not like the 500,000 was critical to whether they came here or not. So I would like to reserve, well, and that means I'm taking myself out of any consideration of using this fund balance, but I think it's more appropriate that the IDA wait until more is known.
John?
Yeah, I actually, Martha just said most of what I wanted to say. I want to echo Martha's concerns about using so much of our fund balance on this. And I don't think this is an appropriate use of our funds.
Okay, I'd like to make a comment, but Mike, you go first.
Well, I've been thinking about this a lot since we've been talking about it, and I wanted to see if there were two options that might be viable in terms of this. The first one would be, say we went ahead and bought this piece of equipment. Could we structure it so that, say, after, I don't know, a number of years, say 5 years, the company then is on the hook to buy the equipment at whatever the depreciated value is? I mean, that helps them out in the interim. It gets them the equipment. They're using the equipment, and then they get to buy it cheaper down the road. I mean, they'll know what the equipment is and how it's been maintained because they're going to be the ones doing that. So that was one maybe option. And then I talked to somebody who's smarter than me, and they were like, you should really ask about warrants in the company. If you're buying this piece of equipment and you're leasing it to them at such a low rent, I don't know how the company is structured, and neither did this person, but they were like, you could ask for warrants in the company, and then it kind of offsets. Now, granted, it's a risk because you're taking in some type of ownership of the company, not a lot of ownership, but $500,000 worth at the time. That could go to, less, obviously, over the course of time, or it could be much more, depending on how the company does. So there's a risk involved there, but it's not like we're just kind of giving a company $500,000. So just a couple of options that I wanted to put out there. I didn't know if they were even viable options, but that was all I had to say.
Thank you. If I could jump in with a comment, I would be in favor of granting this incentive. Knickerbocker would be bringing 88 jobs. That I thought it was 83. So at 88, we're roughly spending $5,700 per job. That will come back in the various taxes, either property taxes, sales taxes, in a relatively short period of time. This is a good investment. If it was necessary to get to a majority vote on this, I would entertain Mike's proposal on the first one of structuring it with a buyout, where we would essentially pay for some of it and then have them buy it at depreciated value. But I understand what Martha is saying about the percentage of our fund balance, but I think we have to be opportunistic. This is manufacturing. It's a fair number of manufacturing jobs. It's jobs that don't require necessarily a college education, which is something we are really top heavy on here in Tompkins County. And I think we take advantage of this opportunity while we have it. So thanks. Jeff.
So I would fall more into Rich's court as well. I just don't, as Heather had said before in her however many years with economic development, we just don't have these type of opportunities come our way to have manufacturers come into New York State and specifically to Ithaca. So I would certainly support this investment. I certainly acknowledge, Martha's concern about the percentage of our fund balance, but I feel like this is an opportunity for us to utilize a fund balance in a great need. And to my proposal out there is a little bit similar to Mike's, although I've got a little bit different spin on it to maybe allay some concerns or fears. My thought was, we buy a piece of equipment for them, we lease it to them for $1, and then after 5 years, they would buy it out from the IDA for 50% of the fair market value of that equipment at that time after 5 years. And then I know they're considering whether to bring their additional jobs from New Jersey. If they bring all of their manufacturing jobs in, then I would say maybe our proposal would be, okay, then that buyout would be $1 at the end of 5 years, because all of a sudden we've got an additional 2 or 250 jobs, I believe it would be. So that would be a proposal that I would certainly support as maybe some type of compromise, but I would certainly be in favor of the 500,000.
Okay, Todd.
Boy, Jeff, I think That's awesome the way you said it, Mike brought up some good point, everywhere some good points, and I really like that idea about, if they bring the other two companies in too, you readjust that buyout. I like that a lot. I think it's smart, and hopefully it could entice them to bring everybody here. It'd be nice. I'd be in support of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's on the table, but it's an interesting discussion piece, perhaps. Laura?
Yeah, thanks. We have heard quite often that it is necessary, it is really important to have these manufacturing jobs. Apprenticeship programs can be developed if they know there is a career path for manufacturing jobs. I mean, I tend to agree with the points that have been made by Rich and Jeff. I do support the use of a fund balance if there's a clear benefit to the community. I mean, this number of jobs is significant, and these are good paying jobs, as has been said, not necessarily requiring a college degree, and yet providing a great income and life for working people. So I'm supportive of some use of the fund balance. I certainly understand the concerns that Martha and John are raising, but at the same time, I think when it is helpful to the community as a whole and to job creation to be flexible with the fund balance, then I'm in support of that.
Okay, Martha?
Yeah, to be clear, I wasn't saying I wasn't supportive of it. I said I wasn't supportive now. That I think it's premature because we don't know what the total fund balance is going to be. And starting I think the first meeting when Heather described how significant our balance was going to be, I said, well, I'd love to see a plan. What are the other options, looking ahead? What are the other ideas that the staff thinks are on the horizon? What are some other gaps that we wish we had flexible cash for? And I still don't see any plan. So that's really the thing. And yeah, this is a great use. But seriously, how can you consider this use unless you consider it against other possible uses? And so that's my main thing. We haven't set up any criteria. We don't know any parameters. We don't know what else is on the horizon. So I just think it's premature.
Okay, thank you. John? You're on mute.
Sorry. We're talking about this like this is the difference between getting 80 jobs and not getting 80 jobs. And I don't think that that's actually really what we're talking about here, right? Like we've just approved an incentive package. They're already hiring their employees. Do we actually understand what the real difference is between this specific investment of these $500,000 and not doing that? What happens or doesn't happen because of that? It's certainly not the case that they're not moving the factory here if we don't do that, right? It's a question of what will they do with this specific money and what will it mean to the employment picture? And I'd like to hear that answer from the applicant.
Okay, you care to respond at this time on that point? Did you understand the question?
Yes, I understood the question. John, we're investing probably in equipment, I would say somewhere between $3 and $4 million in total in equipment coming up to the Dryden plant. Originally, we had anticipated.
Oh, you broke up.
We're going to be getting a substantial cash grant from the state towards our equipment and building purchase. We are coming to Tompkins County. I'm not going to beat around the bush. It's my intention to come. I've tried to be open and forthright with anyone. I'm not trying to play games and negotiate and say we're not going to we're going to hold back jobs if we don't get the grant. The reality is the more you can support us with a financial grant, the faster we'll be able to move jobs up to Tompkins County. And I think that's the biggest thing, as opposed to growing organically. It'll allow us as a company to exceed the timeline of moving jobs to Tompkins County a lot faster. I hope that satisfies.
Yeah,
I think that's the best way to characterize this. It will accelerate our timeline of getting to the 80 jobs, providing we can find people that want to come to work, and we're confident we can, based on what we intend to start paying people in the area.
Great. Okay, Todd.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, I really like Laura, your opinion on that too, about bringing the jobs here and stuff like that. That's awesome. Everybody had great points again, and I would be in favor of this too. It's great to see. I don't know how you got this, how you get together with Knickerbocker here, but I think this is a great opportunity for us, and I'd hate to miss out on it. But I think we should definitely jump on it.
And my further comment is I realized I forgot one thing I wanted to say, which is New York State kind of said one thing and then did another. And if we really want to be competitive with other states, I think we have to be realistic about what New York State is willing to actually do and what they, compared to what they say they're going to do. Looking at this investment in some equipment equalizes that. And I think that's important too. Martha.
I'd like to ask Russ about what kind of payback options are workable, legitimate, et cetera. This idea of 5 years on paying some or all of the value or depreciated, or what is your opinion on how to structure something like that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, as the memo sets forth, and I know, Martha, you noted the second paragraph, and again, that's a local policy issue. IDAs are certainly within their right to buy and own and lease equipment, land improvements. And if you want to buy a piece of equipment for $1 and lease it for 10 years and take the depreciated value back after 10 years for 50 cents on the dollar, that's certainly within your right. So I'm not punting. It's a business deal that I think that needs to be thought through. If the $500,000 investment is sought to be paid back, then yes, we can structure it in a way that some or all of that will be paid back on a depreciated basis. And I don't know what the piece of equipment is and how fast it depreciates and what the value is 5 years, 10 years down the road. That's, you know, for the accountants to figure out, but we certainly could structure it such, okay, IDA is making a $500,000 purchase of equipment. And by accounting standards, it depreciates by X dollars on an annual basis. And the company is obligated to purchase that from us after a period of time. We can do it really any way that the board wants to do it. You just can't give them the money.
Okay.
Okay,
Mike?
and that sounds great. And I would like to ask Heather, if I don't see any written plan, but I would like to ask Heather off the top of your head or whatever you have in mind for other uses, other potential uses for the fund balance.
Okay, I'm happy to put together a plan. I would love to put together a plan, actually. I thought I might get a little bit of feedback from this group, you know, what your thoughts might be, and then I would be happy to put something together. I think that there are certainly action items in the countywide recovery strategy that this body could look at supporting, specific to supporting manufacturing and research and development, high-tech companies that are one of our key sectors here. I think it should be manufacturing. I think it should be something that supports that sector. The healthcare sector is another key sector of ours. I think anything around workforce development to support a pipeline of workforce for those two sector industries, or the construction trades, which is a really important sector for us. I don't think that we have enough cash in our fund balance anywhere you slice it to really make a big difference in terms of infrastructure or infrastructure to support housing. I think we'd need more like $10 million, which we don't have. So I would throw that off the table. One of the really important projects for us over the next several years is going to be Emerson. If there's pieces around supporting the redevelopment of Emerson, particularly the pieces that would support industrial or light manufacturing development, building 24 in particular, the office building could be renovated pretty readily for an accelerator, the next step incubator transition space for in particular the microfluidics companies. We've got about 8 or 9 of them up in between the 2 incubators on campus. And then something that a lot of people don't place a lot of stock in, but I think it's really important from a planning perspective, is what we call wayfinding signage. Our community, it's sort of soft money and it's hard to come by, but our community has been trying to find ways to fund, consistent and welcoming signage, not only for visitors, but for residents and for people that might be coming to look for jobs. If you don't live in Ithaca, you don't know where the parking garage is downtown. You don't know where Cornell is. You don't know where Ithaca College is.
Heather,
you can't even find
if I could interrupt,
hotel. So
Heather?
Those are sort of my laundry list that I would be happy to put
That's
together.
quite a laundry list. Hold on, Martha, because Mike and Todd.
And let me just finish, Rich. Just that is a laundry list. That's way more than $1.8 million worth. And I appreciate all that. And I would just put a caution in about the county's recovery fund. Lately, what I'm hearing out about how that is rolling out or not rolling out, I'm starting to get, frankly, pessimistic about it happening at all. So I would suggest that nobody should count on the county's recovery fund of $6.5 million coming in to rescue any of these projects. One more question, I'm sorry. Is there a way to buy to pay half the cost for this piece of equipment?
Yes, I think there is. And what I would suggest, we hear Mike and Todd, and then let's put a motion on the table for the full 500. And if that does not pass, then we can do some sort of secondary proposal, unless the will of the IDA is different. But let's hear from Mike and Todd.
I just wanted to say that, I mean, I know that you all really liked the depreciation the most, but Jeff's was pretty great. So Jeff's actually gets me there. So if that were to move forward in some kind of semblance of what Jeff was talking about earlier, that would be great. And I want to say kind of why, just quickly. We have other manufacturers in the county too, who were here and have paid the freight for an awful long time in Tompkins County. And have also created jobs over those number of years and didn't come to us and ask for equipment and things like that. And I would anticipate that if we do take on a policy like this, maybe they will one day. And this kind of sets forward for the future kind of a little bit better of what I think should happen, as opposed to us just granting, because anytime we get an ask for a piece of equipment for manufacturing, it's going to be expensive. And I'd like to see us have kind of something set up, a precedent, if you will. That means we can do this again. I mean, I would like to see this actually be something we can utilize for these businesses. So if you guys would consider Jeff's proposal, I'm just as happy with that as I am with the depreciation method. So.
Okay, well, I guess we'll get a motion in just a few minutes. Actually, Todd, if you could give me 1 second. Given Heather's laundry list, it does seem like this is a worthy subject for one of the IDA subcommittees to consider and develop an actual policy on. So something to think about. Todd?
Oh, yeah, because I know that, listen to that laundry list too. This is something that's, some of these projects like the one we just did for extending that one from 30 to 35 years, that's not creating any more jobs. This is definitely a job creator. And I completely support what Mike just said about Jeff's idea. I think that's that's an awesome approach. You know, and I would definitely support a motion like that, like what Jeff proposed. I mean, that's what we're about, the IDA, you know, the other stuff was just helping developers, you know, to get projects, and you don't have the permanent amount of jobs like we're talking about with this. This is definitely like, you know, like you were saying, Rich, this is a way to get people out of high school and getting some nice career jobs. They've been around over 100 years. It's not just a startup company. They've been around for quite a while. And I'd rather invest in someone that's been around like that than someone brand new.
Okay, John?
Yeah, I guess a couple of points, like one of the things that Mike said just kind of like raised for me, like we can't do this a bunch. This can't be something that we have as a regular program, because you know, this is more than 25% of our fund balance, and our fund balance is high right now because of a specific set of like relatively recent development activities. It's not, I mean, you know, to Martha's earlier point, this isn't something that like we usually don't have a lot of funds. So, and there's no real expected consistent source of more. And I think that it is an interesting, you know, to look at the fact that there are a bunch of other manufacturers in the community that are now going to be competing with Knickerbocker over the employees that might be available in this, you know, labor pool. You know, that just further challenges like that we're gonna take this money and give it to them to create that situation. So I don't think this is a good idea for a wide variety of reasons. And
okay, all right, Jeff. Since people seem to be gravitating towards what you proposed, would you like to put that on the floor as a motion, and we'll see what kind of response we get to it?
Sure. So I would propose that we expend $500,000 to buy a piece of equipment for Knickerbocker. We lease it back to them for $1 per year for a 5-year lease term. And at the end of 5 years, we get an appraised value for that piece of equipment, and they need to buy it from the IDA for 50% of that appraised value. If they move the other manufacturing jobs that they currently have in New Jersey to Ithaca by the end of that 5-year period, then that buyout price would be $1.
Okay, do I have a second for that proposal? Yes, Todd seconds. Okay. Okay, discussion. Martha.
Was Todd going to say something?
I think Todd seconded.
Okay, I thought he was saying something else. So get an appraised value 5 years, and then they need to buy it back for half the appraised value. Is that what you said?
Yep.
And what's the if then? If they move what kind of jobs?
If they move their other lines that they currently have in New Jersey. So my understanding is that this is a new line that they're creating that's going to be placed into the Ithaca market. If they move their other lines from New Jersey, relocate all of those other jobs to Ithaca, then the buyout price would go down to $1.
And I would stress that that is not a proposal from Knickerbocker right now. That's speculative, but
correct.
It would be a conditional.
It gives a little bit more incentive. Now, look, I mean, a $500,000 piece of equipment at the end of 5 years, I mean, maybe at best it's worth $100,000, maybe. I mean, depending on that type of equipment. So we're talking $50,000 that they buy it, or if they move all the jobs, it's $1. It's not a big number, but it's a little bit more of an incentive for them.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. It's not I don't know about that, but I guess I would, if that's actually in this deal, I would rather see more certainty. I mean, how many jobs, what's, you know, in what time frame, et cetera. So, but at any rate, I appreciate this, and I won't belabor this because I'm not going to support it anyway. I think it's too big of a suck on the fund balance and without the information that we need. Thank you.
Okay, John?
Yeah, I think that we need to put a specific number of jobs on. It feels inappropriate for us to say you have to close a factory in another town and fire a bunch of people in order to get more of an incentive from us. I think that we should condition on a specific number of jobs. And if they want to create that by doubling their business instead of closing their New Jersey factory, then that's fantastic for us and New Jersey. But to say, they gotta close another factory, that just seems.
That's fine. I would, so then I would amend that proposal and say, I think their target was 88 jobs for the existing line. Maybe we just say it's, ×2. If they're at that employment in the Ithaca market within 5 years, then it would be the $1. That'd be fine with me.
That seems quite a bit better than specifically telling another town that we're gonna.
That's fine.
Try to take away their jobs in this incentive.
Okay, anybody else? We ready to vote? I'll call in order on the screen. John?
No.
Todd?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Martha?
No.
Mike?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so that passes. Okay. Do we have further conversation on the fund balance policy other than I would suggest that we take this to one of the committees of the IDA. I think this could be developed in more detail, and it probably should be. Martha and then John.
Yeah, took the words out of my mouth.
Okay, John?
I don't think it should be a committee. I think we should have a special meeting focused entirely on fund balance. I think everybody here is going to have something to say about it. And I think that it would be much better if we were to all be included in the conversation.
I'm agnostic on that. I would be happy to have the discussion at the full IDA. I'm afraid it would take a fair amount of time. Perhaps we need a special meeting to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be a special meeting focused on nothing else. I feel like this is a big topic that has a lot of dimensions to it. I mean, maybe we want to establish an ad hoc committee that's all of us for a period of time or something like that. To give us a couple of meetings, but I think we really do need to give it its due time. There's a lot that we could do here.
Okay, a committee of the whole. All right, I think let's table that and revisit. Okay.
Yeah. I just meant, John, just to clarify, I didn't mean a committee would make the decision. I meant the committee would sort of work through details and draft a proposal and bring it to the IDA for full discussion.
Yes, that's what I was thinking, but it could be the whole committee. It's okay. Let's think on that and try to make a decision at our next meeting. I'd like to move on to the local labor policy. And I, again, thank everybody for their hard work at our special meeting. And I hope everybody had a chance to look at the red line that Kurt has prepared. And I guess first round, I'd say, does the red line, if we could address this question, does the red line reflect your understanding of what we discussed and agreed to at the special meeting? Anybody have any contrary view to that? John?
Yeah, I think it mostly does. One question that I had, and I don't think we talked about this at all at the special meeting, at the end of the waiver section, it says all decisions are final. There's a question in my mind of like, if staff is unable to grant a waiver because, they don't, they can't quite make it fit into the box. At that point, it seems like it would be sensible for us to offer the applicant the review the opportunity to say, really, this is other extenuating circumstances. We talked about that where, like 10% over the whole project would be other extenuating circumstances, but 10% on a specific sub wouldn't. And without the ability to draw that line really clearly, it seems like there ought to be an opportunity for a sort of a final re-review of staff decisions if an applicant wanted to bring it back to us. So I would propose that we just change that, like to essentially be that the decisions of the TCIDA board are final. And perhaps insert something about if a denied waiver can come before the board.
Anybody else have comment on that? Agree, disagree? I'm seeing nodding heads. Do we want to propose some
Right.
language in there, John?
Yeah, sure. So I mean,
Language change?
perhaps at the section,
You're saying
further
remove all
expansion.
decisions are final?
Yeah, and maybe just state, administrative, let's see, what are we calling it? We're calling them administrative requests.
Administrative approvals.
Yeah. How about an applicant may appeal administrative approvals to the board. All decisions of the IDA board are final.
Okay. And I consider that so moved. Is there a second for that language change? Martha seconds. Discussion?
Can you read that one more time, John? What would it be?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Heather, can you actually read back what I said?
An applicant may appeal administrative approvals, all decision to the TCIDA board, all decisions by the board are final.
Right.
Okay. We ready to vote? I'll call in order on the screen. John?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Martha?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that change is made. Are we ready to vote on the whole policy? Do we have further discussion on other parts? Martha?
Go ahead, Heather.
I had forwarded an email from Nels Bone about the affordable piece. Nels Bone is the director of the Ithaca Urban Renewal Agency. He's the housing guru at the city. And he suggested that we increase the affordable regulatory period to 30 years to match up with New York State programs. Right now, the way it's written, it's 20 years, and New York State does provide a 20-year regulatory period in some cases. So I would recommend keeping it at 20 years. If it's 30 years, that's great. If it still fits within the policy. He also recommended allowing 10 to 25% of the units in an affordable project to be rented above that 80% of area median income rates to encourage mixed income projects. It is very hard to get mixed income projects approved by the state. However, I think that we should provide for, should that change, should they be more willing to do that in the future, that we have the ability to do so. And I would recommend changing the exemption piece to say affordable housing defined as those projects where at least 75% of units are made available to households earning 80% or less of median income. So instead of saying the entirety has to be made available, at least 75%. So that gives some wiggle up there.
All right, John, Martha, and Todd, I see your hands raised. Are you raising your hands on this point? Yeah.
No, I have a different, there's a minor change.
Let's deal with this first.
Yeah,
Martha,
I'll
were you
move
raising
Heather's
your-
language. I think that's good language.
Okay. Martha?
I was going to agree with some of it, but not all of it. I would agree with Heather, are you saying that the period of time be 30 or 20? I thought you sort of
It's
said.
No, Heather was
already
suggesting
20,
that was
so-
left at 20.
It's already at 20. If a project came in and it were more, we would certainly do it.
Yeah, it says at least 20 years.
Yeah.
So what was his name?
No.
Rick Manzardo was suggesting is covered in there. Now, the thing about 80%, and I appreciate you're sending us Nels's email. He says, I wouldn't be surprised if if eventually the state would like to see market rate integrated. Now, eventually could be, especially with New York State, like never. I mean, I don't want, we're talking about exempting a project from the local labor requirement. And I think there's a reasonably high bar that some people really said we shouldn't exempt any of these projects from the local labor requirement. So I would not at the moment be in favor of this, at least 75% of the units. If the state does change its policy, then obviously the IDA can revise its policy to match. So I guess based on this, I think we're covered on the period of time, and I wouldn't support changing the percentage of affordable units.
It seems we
Right.
could certainly change it in the future if New York State came around, since this is a
I
policy.
could see a scenario where there might be a project where 20% of the units would be available to incomes up to 100% of median income, or even 90% of median income, that, the state might do on a 4% tax credit project. And we are really looking at ways to do more of the 4%. They're as of right projects. So that could give a little wiggle in there. I mean, we know there's need for those larger units at the 90 to 100% of median income as well.
Okay, Todd?
Yeah, I like the, what Kurt sent us with the red lines in there. And I would be support, I don't know if it's, if you need a motion for it or not, but to support what Kurt has there with the one correction we did that John proposed and we voted on. I think it looks great the way it is with the document we have in front of us with that correction from John. I think it looks great.
Okay, let's just get through this question about the exemption and whether we want to change the percentage. John?
Yeah, I mean, the policy allows for programs, or for units that are incentivized or under a regulatory agreement with a local, state, or federal entity. And it's possible that for some, projects like 327 West Seneca that are smaller and have less of a gap because of their construction type, we might see the ability for us to incentivize projects at the local level without actually requiring that they go to the state or federal level, between IURA and the housing community housing fund. And I think that, to Heather's point, the workforce housing is a big priority that we're trying to work on. And I think having some flexibility in the policy would be good.
Okay, Laura, did you have something?
No, my comments are similar to those John just made.
All right, so do we want to, Heather, could you read the language again, and then maybe we could get a motion on it?
Just changing that in red where it says the entirety of to at least 75%. So
Okay,
I moved that, Rich.
John moves. Do I have a second? Jeff seconds. Any further discussion? We ready to vote? I'll call for
I'm
Todd?
sorry, what was that with the, what do we're sticking with the language that was in Kurt's proposal?
No, I've just moved a change to the language to change the entirety of, in the first sentence of the affordable or the exemption section, to at least 75% of.
Okay.
And the upshot, Todd, would be it would allow some mixed use developments where some are reduced AMI and some would be up to 100%. Okay, we ready to vote? I'll call in order on the screen. John?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Todd?
No.
Jeff?
Yes.
Martha?
No.
Mike?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay. I think that was 3-4. Was it? Okay. All right. Any further changes on the policy as a whole? Any further comment? John?
One really minor, I think this is a typo. The very last sentence of exemptions, we removed the words local labor utilization, but we left C. I think it should say this policy, right? Because otherwise it's not clear what policy we're exempting from.
Okay. Let's treat that as manifest change.
And I'll move the policy as a whole.
Thank you. Do we have a second on our local labor utilization policy? Martha seconds. This is a big vote. Anything further? Let's call the roll. John,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Martha,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So congratulations. This has been a good effort. And I'm sure we're going to see whether what we've done works or doesn't work, and we'll figure it out. Moving on the agenda, we have the 2022 IAED MOU for consideration. It's in your packet. Any questions or comments on that? Otherwise, could I get a motion to approve it? John?
Are there any changes to this from last year?
The only change is that we increased the administrative fee payment to IAED by 2%. That would be the first increase we've done in about 4 years.
But the language is otherwise an exact match for what's there. Okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and move it.
All right, do we have a second? Laura seconds. Thanks. Any further questions or comments? I'll call the roll. John?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yep.
Martha?
Yes.
Mike? Didn't get it, Mike?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, that passes. Great. We have an informational discussion on the IAED 2022 work plan. I am concerned on timing in that we also have a Tompkins County Development Corporation meeting. So Heather, what's your pleasure? Do you want to take some time on this, or do you want to talk about
It's
this?
in your packet. It's attached to the MOU. Our work plan was developed in conjunction with our staff, the planning committee of IAED's board. We got some comment from the Housing and Economic Development Committee at the legislature. I'm excited about some of our special projects for next year and continuing some of the existing work that we're doing around broadband, around housing, around Chainworks redevelopment. And I'd be happy to take questions offline or at another time if folks have questions.
Okay, why don't we do that offline? But thank you for all your work on that. And let's keep moving on the agenda. And for the chair's report, I actually went and looked at the agendas for the year because I just wanted to get some summary. We've had a really, really busy year. And I wanted to commend all of the IDA members and our staff for really pulling together. We got a lot done. And again, welcome to Todd and Jeff, our new members, and our commitment to making sure we have a clear voice on the IDA from labor. I think has been a very positive development. And so Todd, thank you for your input. And Jeff, thank you for all your contributions on behalf of the IAED. Looking at the year, we did some really good stuff in terms of the emergency COVID childcare grants to local daycare centers. I think that was one of the things I was most proud of in terms of our ability to innovate and to target help where it was needed for HVAC systems at our daycare centers. You know, we considered several different projects and gave incentives to help Data Point Labs, Salt Point Brewery in Kodama, the Asteri project, and NSF's Enfield Solar, McKinley Development, the Carpenter Park groundbreaking occurred. We helped on the Development Corporation side with the Kendall Bond refinancing. That was a big deal. Today, we helped Knickerbocker come to our community and get going. We reviewed several different of our policies, including our Community Investment Incentive Tax Abatement Program, our internal controls, our fee structure and pilot transfer policy. And of course, today we finalized our longstanding work on our labor policy. We did a lot. and I think we really helped our community. So thank you to everybody. And I'd also just say that Laura, I think you're ending your term, and we will miss you. I think you made really valuable contributions. So I appreciate it. And Martha Robertson, I don't know how many years you've served on the IDA over your 20 years on the legislature, but thank you to you for all of your work. So
that would be 16.
16, okay. And Heather, again, thank you to you and your staff. We certainly could not have done what we've done, and I include you, Russ, in that. Thank you. We did good stuff this year, so great. Staff report, anything further before we go to the Development Corporation?
I have been back and forth with McKinley, the project in our parking lot here, and it looks like they're teeing up to close by the end of the year. So that's very positive news there. It looked like it might have been pushed into next year. So with that, the almost $1.6 million will go to the Community Housing Development Fund. I think that that project is really tied up with the construction restarting at Library Place. So I am hearing from LaChase, the general contractor, that they are on site. They're doing little bits of site work, and they will tee up to be back into full construction over at Library Place within the next 30 to 60 days. So that's very positive news on that front. My state association has engaged a consultant, the MRB group, to put together a cost benefit analysis that all of the IDAs could use for a small fee. Mike Ndolo with the MRB group has worked on cost benefit analyses for IDAs for at least the past 15 years. So he's put together a really quick, simple tool that allows us to see not only the direct benefits, but indirect and induced benefits as a result of a project. So I have purchased it at IAED, and you'll start to see that next year with new projects. It does capture solar. It's not great at capturing housing projects, but for industrial, you'll be getting a little bit more robust analysis. And then I also wanted to thank Laura Lewis for her time on the IDA. She did let me know earlier this year that she would not be renewing for any additional terms. And we've looked around at the city. I've talked to Rich, and we've made a recommendation to the Housing and Economic Development Committee of the County Legislature to appoint Faith Favre, who is the Chief of Staff to the mayor in the city of Ithaca for a 2-year at-large term that would start in January. So that's where that is going. And Martha, you're not off the hook yet, because all of the legislators serve at the pleasure of the legislature. And our next meeting is on January 12th. Put that on your calendar. I doubt that the new legislature will have made their appointments to the IDA yet. So I'm anticipating that in January, at least, we will continue to have Martha, Rich, John, Mike Sigler as our legislative reps.
Okay.
And that's what I've got. I did want to have you approve minutes, and then if we could go, if you have a couple more minutes, we could go into a brief executive session just to update on Arrowhead.
Okay, I'd like to give Martha and Laura a chance because they've had their hands raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, first, it's really been 16 years is a long ride, and it's really been fascinating and an honor to participate and to, hope I've contributed some. I was going to ask about the IDA membership, and you might want to check with our boss, Kathy Covert. So on the timing there. I was wondering about the space Knickerbocker's going into. That's a huge complex. And when Vanguard Printing left, my question is there additional space left, or are they taking everything that had been vacated?
They're purchasing the entire building. I believe there's 12 acres of land there. I did get word this week that they are negotiating with the town of Dryden. They are completely willing to donate a small portion of that land for the rail trail. And the company itself has talked about the potential for expansion. The building could be expanded on some of the vacant land. Some of it is wetland and not suitable for development, but there is some area that you could expand the building if need be.
Okay.
I thought it was 29 acres, but to be
It
checked.
could be. You know how I am with numbers.
No, you're very good with numbers. Laura.
Thank you.
Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. And I just wanted to say how much I've appreciated working on this board. Not as long as Martha, but in my 4 years, I guess, on the board, half of which has been on Zoom. A little hard to realize that has been the case. I've been really impressed with other members of the board, certainly very impressed with staff. And Rich, just to hear your summary of the work that has been accomplished, particularly this past year during the pandemic, is truly impressive. And the work of the staff, I don't think I could sing high enough praise for all the work of the staff, particularly during this incredibly challenging year. So I have appreciated this time. I've learned a lot from all of you and hope I've contributed some as well. So thank you. And I will be applauding you from a distance.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. And if I could get a motion on the minutes from October 13th and November 10th. Laura moves, Jeff seconds. I'll call the roll. Laura?
Yes, one last time.
Todd?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Martha?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So thank you. Any further business to come before the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency this meeting?
If someone wanted to move to go into executive session.
Well, I was wondering about that. Do we want to take care of the Development Corporation? Because we have the.
Yes.
So can we go into executive session on the Development Corporation, or is it the issue exclusive to the IDA?
We could simply fail to adjourn the IDA meeting, right?
Yeah. I would fail to adjourn the IDA, start the Development Corporation, close the Development Corporation, come back to the IDA.
We'll do a double adjournment. Okay. So if we could suspend our IDA meeting, and I would call to order the meeting of the Tompkins County Development Corporation for December 8th, 2021. Welcome, everybody. And is there any privilege of the floor? I believe we received that with the IDA. Any additions to the agenda? The one item of business is the 2022 IAED MOU for approval. Could I get a motion to put that on the floor? Laura moves. Todd seconds. And I'll ask John's question. Any changes from prior years?
No
Okay.
changes at all. The administrative fee is paid by the IDA solely. So this is just an MOU for services.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? We ready to vote? Laura?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Martha?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mike? Mike?
Yes.
And the chair votes
Yes.
yes. Okay. And I realized looking at the screen, I thanked everybody, but Rick Snyder provides tremendous support from county finance. And I wanted to say I appreciate all the help you've given us as well. So
And none of
there he is.
none of the trains would run on time without Ina. So
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Chair's report, none. Any staff report for the Development Corporation? Right, we have minutes from October 13th, 2021. Could I get a motion on those? Laura moves. Jeff seconds. All right. All in favor, Laura?
Yes?
Jeff?
Yes.
Martha? I'll call that a yes.
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Any further business to come before the Development Corporation? Seeing none, we'll stand adjourned. We are back in the IDA meeting. Could I get a motion to go into executive session? Laura? Laura moves. Martha seconds. I'll call the roll. Laura?
Yes, I do have a question. Do we anticipate any vote needing to come after the executive session?
No.
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
So no further business will be entertained after.
Thank
We'll
you.
just come out and adjourn. Jeff?
Yes.
Martha?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.